Good evening and welcome to the Main Line. My name is Justin. I'm one of the managers at Marion, Maine. And tonight we have a special guest who is the founder and CEO of Minorities for Medical Marijuana. Her name is Roz McCarthy. Let's welcome her to the stage.
Hi, Justin.
Hi, Roz. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to have you today. And we're excited to talk about your adventures and your business. You have started a wonderful foundation, Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and I'd like to, go over some of those topics and what that means to our community.
Absolutely.
So let's start with what's your experience been with cannabis and what led you into the industry?
Yeah, great question. I'm happy to be here on Marion, Maine, and shout out to Hope Wiseman and creating such a wonderful platform to talk about cannabis and to have normalize a conversation on cannabis. So I'm the founder and the CEO of Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and literally we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. I started in 2016, and literally I started on my sofa. I live in Florida. And Florida at the time was going through they were talking about the amendment going to be on the ballot for a medical marijuana program, right? So Florida has 21 million people here. It's a diverse community, but however, lawmakers are very conservative. And I start thinking about, okay, you have now an industry that you're going to say that it's going to be open for people to be able to access medicine. However, disproportionately impacted communities are not going to receive this okay, well, let me go get my card, because you're just not going to. And I just felt compelled to create something that was going to be a bridge, that was going to be a supporter, someone in your community that you could depend on to give you the answers that you can trust. And I had experience working with a nonprofit as a consultant to nonprofits. I was a grant writer, a grant reviewer. I spent 25 years in healthcare management, senior level executive management. I worked for a pharmaceutical industry as well as in the hospice industry. I just took all of those different skill sets and I decided to really go the nonprofit way first, because I didn't know much about the industry. I just knew that let me do something that's going to create community and let me figure out where the areas that I need to focus on. And then the last thing that really was driving me was the fact that I lost my mom to breast cancer in 2005. And my son at the time was 17, and my son has sickle cell anemia. And so for me, I want to be able to also have a comfortable conversation with my son, with your son, with any other person that looks like me about the efficacy of cannabis to support your healthcare needs. And that's why I started it.
That's awesome. So what's the response been? What was it in Florida to your business? How did it affect change? Did you notice any?
Yeah. So let me tell you what happened in Florida. And this is what, and mind you, this is 2016. This is prior to many states that have come on board with the medical program or adult use. So in Florida at the time when I first started in the country, I got the kind of the cool brush off, okay, that's nice. Remember, social equity wasn't a hot buzz. It was just rolling out in Oakland. It was just rolling out in Los Angeles. You didn't have much talk about it in any other state. We were focusing on diversity. There wasn't much policy about diversity and inclusion in the industry. You had operators who really didn't care about, I shouldn't say they didn't care, but they were not coming out and being champions for diversity and equity and inclusion.
They didn't see the benefit to coming out.
And seeing the benefit, right? Right. Yeah. So for me, it was almost okay, do you turn away because you don't think it's going to work? I mean, literally, Justin, I'm going to just be honest with you. And you guys who really want to get into the industry, for me, I ran from this. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this. And I have a resume that should have had me in a 6-figure job. And I promise you, I put my resume out there to so many different people, so many different, just positions, because I'm like, you know what? I just need to go find a job, and I'm not going to do this nonprofit. And if you've ever had something that is your calling, this was my calling. Because no matter how much experience, no matter how big and large and the expertise that I had on my resume, I couldn't find a job. And for me, I think it was spirit driven. I think it was spirit led, spirit driven, that this is not what you're going to do. You're not going to go work for someone. You're going to run this organization. and you're going to create connections. You're going to help people get into the industry. You're going to figure out how to get good policy in, and it's going to happen. And so what I did was one afternoon, I was at my desk working, I was frustrated, and I just wrote down everything I wanted. I was like, I want it to be a national nonprofit. I want to be in several different communities. I want to have a working budget of $1 million plus, because it's nothing like a Black nonprofit that can do good work, but doesn't have the money to do the work. So I was like, I want to have $1 million plus budget coming in so I can do the work. And I just wrote all this stuff down on paper. And honestly, Justin, everything has come to fruition. I mean, I'm not at $1 million yet, but we are just slowly but surely, the promise of what I wanted is coming through.
That's awesome. Yay. So what inspired, what was the main drive with the creation of M4MM? What did that look like for someone who is opening up a dispensary? For instance? How do I come and contact you? What can you do for me?
Exactly. Well, some of the things, as a nonprofit, some of the things that we focus on is social justice issues, like expungement clinics, social equity. We just wrapped up a boot camp in Michigan. If you guys are wondering about a state who has a legalized market on the adult use side that is trying to create opportunities for small, mid-level, large, and social equity businesses to come in and thrive, Michigan has some good policy. And so right now, Michigan has a micro business license. And this past weekend, we actually did a boot camp for those individuals in Michigan to understand what the license was about, how to apply, how to understand, how to create your team, all the different nuances to building a business in cannabis. We went over during the boot camp. And so if you are someone who's aspiring to have a dispensary or what have you, the reason why you should be a part of M4MM is that you need to find your tribe. You got to go somewhere where you can raise your hand and knowing that the person who's going to answer you is going to give you smart, intelligent, real-time information that's going to help you move your business forward. And not only that, they look like you, so they understand you. They come from communities that you come from. They can empathize, they can sympathize. This is what M4MM is all about. We have community, and there's so many members that are in your community who are willing to help you, who are willing to do business with you, who are willing to like give you resources when you feel like, man, I don't know where to turn. We got people. All you gotta do is just pick up the phone, go into the chat, and say, hey, I'm looking for this, and they'll ping you. Like, it's just a great way to exchange information. And like for us, our membership is $100 for the year. That's it.
Okay. For
the year. So we do that because what we want to do is weed out individuals who are just kind of, hey, I kind of think I want to do this, versus that individual who's like, listen, I'm a startup business, I'm new to this, or I'm looking to learn, and I'm willing to support the organization and have my membership. It's $100.
That's a very small price to pay for a wealth of knowledge and someone who's kind of laying the groundwork for you. Well, that's awesome. So how have you seen the industry progress since the birth of your company?
Yeah, so since the birth of the organization, I mean, that was in 2016. So I started May 10th, 2016. We're getting ready to celebrate our 5-year anniversary. Yeah, I know, right? So we got to do something big. And so November 8th of 2016, the amendment in Florida passed by 73%. January of 2017, right after November, it was policy time. So I've never lobbied before. I had never gone to the state capitol before. I had never spoken before a Senate hearing before. I had never spoken in front of Congress before. I had never lobbied and gone office to office saying, hey, this is an issue that I need your help on. And I literally learned all this stuff overnight. And literally we're now in 27 different states. We just added Puerto Rico so we have the territory of Puerto Rico as well. We have 3 international chapters, one in the UK, one in Jamaica, and one in Toronto. And then we have 2 HBCU chapters, one at FAMU and one at Southern University Law School. So great progress, still a lot of work to do. But the promise of what I wanted to do, I'm seeing it come to fruition. And that's what it's all about. Normally, guys, when you start a nonprofit, normally a nonprofit comes after if you create your for-profit business and you're making great money and you got revenue coming in, you say, hey, what can I do to be a blessing? How can I help? What's my give back? And normally businesses, they'll start a nonprofit and they'll put money into that nonprofit and they will have other people put money into it. And you will find a cause that you support that's centric to your business. I did it backwards. So I started the nonprofit first because I didn't have relationships. I didn't have connections. I didn't know the industry firsthand. I was brand new and I wasn't a consumer. So I had never I never in high school, college, I never experienced even consuming cannabis. So I just had my learning curve was so high that I figured, let me come in of trying to, and then also I have a servant's heart. So I was like, well, let me try to serve my community. And while I'm serving, as I'm learning and pushing that information I'm learning out to my community, I'm being able to understand what things need to be done to make the industry better. And so that's where I am now.
Wow. What are some of the hurdles that you've had to kind of overcome? Where do you find that the biggest roadblocks were during this process? Was it in the legislative process, or
I would say some of the hurdles, initially as a nonprofit, you see this work you want to do, but it took me about 3 years before I really started getting revenue coming in from outside sources to be able to do the work. So if you're doing something like this, like I don't pay myself. So I was still doing my consulting business, trying to find consulting contracts, but also trying to run a nonprofit. So sometimes when you first start, and this is with any business, you have to be the jack of all trades. You have to be the one that writes the press releases. You have to do the marketing. You have to do the graphics. And I didn't know anything about graphics, but guess what? I found different software applications on the web that allow me to go in and manipulate, like I'm doing a PowerPoint, create my flyer. Here's my flyer. It wasn't perfect, but basically I was a subject matter expert in every phase of outreach, education, training, marketing. Now, the good thing about it is that half of that stuff was a foundation of what I've been doing already for 25 years in the healthcare industry. So it was second nature. So my skill set of being, knowing how to connect with people, knowing how to facilitate meetings, things of that nature, that was second nature. What wasn't second nature was trying to open up doors where you felt like you weren't wanted and trying to figure out, how do I jump over those hurdles? And how do we get good policy in? So I want to make this clear. In order for us and from our community, from minority-owned businesses, social equity businesses, in order for us to be successful and to enter, we have to be on the policy side. When we go and we we vote for our lawmakers represent us. You're the constituent. I'm the constituent. And if we are not in front of those lawmakers saying, hey, listen, if you have an adult use bill that comes through and it doesn't have a strong social equity component to it, we don't want you to support it because we don't support it. Policy is the start of everything. And if I can say so internally, it was just getting the funds in order to get the job done. External, it's been the policy side of being able to, one, educate policymakers, because guess what? The policymakers, they have no clue about cannabis. They don't know about the industry. You're asking them to support social equity, and they have no idea what social equity is.
Yeah.
And so if we can really, and it's getting better. But in 2017, no policymaker, I went to the Black Caucus and I was like talking about cannabis and they looked at me like I was crazy.
Of course, because it was still a taboo subject. And, outside of the few states where it was legal, no one wants to go near it, especially when you're dealing with federal legislation. What you're looking for now, policy makers who are making sure that social equity is included in ballots and bills.
Yeah. Right. What you want to do is, we have, you have two different things to think about. You have the federal legalization and the conversations about social equity from a federal perspective.
Mhm.
And then you also have state by state a perspective of what that looks like. So long story short, my gosh, can we cut that off? Sorry about that, guys. So long story short, when it comes to on the state side, we're going to want to connect with policymakers to be able to establish, one, that we don't want a program that's going to be for the people if it doesn't have a strong social equity structure or statute or language inside of it. What does that mean? Social equity means we're repairing the harms of individuals who've been most impacted during the war on drugs era, or during the time when you had policemen that were targeting communities of color and arresting due to, smoke and seizure or smell and seizure, things of that nature. When you have folks and you have communities that have been disproportionately impacted, those individuals and those communities have an opportunity to gain on a new industry that's making millions and millions of dollars. So that gain is this. The gain is community engagement, community dollars. How do you take tax revenue? Do you guys know that the state of Colorado has done almost $2 billion in tax revenue? No, I'm sorry. It's over $1 billion in tax revenue over the last 2 years.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. So, but the tax revenue is coming from a plant that most harm communities of color. So therefore, if you go, well, what's social equity? Social equity is repairing the harm. You've done harm when you've broken up families, when people have gone to jail and they've gotten, and it's carried them for years and years and years on their record. There's harm there. So if you're someone that was harmed by the war on drugs era, then you get an opportunity to get first in line to be able to operate in a legalized state. Not only to operate, but to operate to make money and to do well and to be able to take care of yourself and your family. So.
Yeah. And not have to do back alley transactions. They can do it the legal way.
Yeah, absolutely. Do it the legal way. Do it away. And it's not only just touching plants. So there's two different opportunities from a business perspective. You can go after a business that touches plant. That means you cultivate, you manufacture, you process, you are a transporter, you have an event license, you can do delivery services. You are touching the plant.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, you have the ancillary business side and dispensary. But on the flip side, the other coin, you have the ancillary business market. You guys, listen, this industry needs ancillary business. During the gold rush, Levi Strauss, the shovel company, the picks and axe company, they were making more money and doing so much better than the guys who were actually out there gold rushing. And what I mean by that is, you have this cannabis industry. You're going to have some businesses that touch the plant, but the businesses who provide ancillary services to support the industry, you can do so well for yourself. And that's a really cool opportunity to pursue, to enter, where you don't have to have the compliance and the rules and regulations. You could have a software company and build this great new technology, this great new app that becomes a solution for the industry and make millions of dollars. I mean, really, any creative, any type of opportunity, you might want to make a platform, the Facebook of cannabis, and it connects cannabis users with cannabis companies. I don't know, but this could be a platform that you come up with and get creative and make millions of dollars. And so we just have to think and kind of look at both sides of the coin when we're looking at, how do I enter the industry? What can I do?
Wow. So do you have any advice for a new entrepreneur that's trying to break through into the industry? What if they want to get their hands dirty, they want to get into it? Where's the way to start?
First, do your homework. First and foremost, when you go, well, I want to get into the industry, know the industry. Take some time. Do your research. May I recommend, there's a movie. It's called The Grass is Greener. It's on Netflix. Go watch it. Awesome movie. If you guys remember Fab Five Freddy, Justin, you're a little young, so I'm gonna date myself. But Fab Five Freddy back in the day, ask your auntie about it. She'll tell you.
I'm a little older than I look.
So listen. So he used to be the not spokesperson, but he was the host for Yo MTV Raps. Yeah. He did a wonderful documentary called The Grass is Greener. and it documents the role of African Americans in the cannabis prohibition era. It is on Netflix. I tell you guys, it gives you a baseline of understanding why are we fighting the fight. Why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we so passionate about social equity? What happened? Why did it happen? So if you guys are looking to really get into the industry, know your industry first. Know your pressure points, know your high points. Another thing, go subscribe to an industry newsletter so that you can understand what's happening from from a policy perspective, from a business perspective, from a mergers and acquisition perspective, from a market. You just need to know kind of what's the vibe, what's happening. Subscribe to MJ Biz Daily, MJ Biz Daily, BIZ Daily. Just Google it, put it in there. It's free. They'll send you information every single day. Also cannabis business times, I think. So yeah, cannabis, or maybe it's cannabis news time. Great daily information that comes through, right? Mm-hmm. When you start looking at this, what should happen? You should start looking at, okay, what kind of business do I want to have in this industry? And let me tell you guys something. A dispensary is not the end all be all. So whatever you're doing, understand that if you're entering the industry, you got to know what your why is. Why do you want to enter? Is it just to make money? Then don't do it. If you have to have some type of why you're doing it. Why are you wanting to get in? My why was my mom and my son. I want to make sure that other people that may have cancer or different, end of life type of diseases have an option to have a better quality of life. And I want to make sure individuals, especially with sickle cell, have an option to look at cannabis as an option for controlling their pain crises. That's my why. Your why is there because when you have those hard times and when you're just struggling and when you're trying to figure out how to put it together, you're going to need something that's going to give you that that gives you that push to keep going. So once you figure out what your why is, you've done your research, you know in the industry, now's the time to kind of start laying out your plan. There's a great book. It's by Deshita Dawson. So shout out to Deshita. It's called How to Succeed in the Cannabis Industry. How to Succeed in the Cannabis Industry. It's on Amazon. It's a workbook and it's wonderful. It's a workbook because it takes you through step-by-step of organizing your thoughts. So when you're trying to figure out how do I organize my thoughts on to where I want to go, she gives you prompts and gives you questions to answer for you to organize your thoughts. And then once you do that, and once you're like, I think I know where I want to go, then join M4MM and come see me and I got you.
Yeah. Yeah. This is definitely not an industry that you just wake up one morning and you're like, okay, I'm going to try that. Right. I'm going to grab up some coin and fill out the application on the MMCC and go from there. No.
It's not. It's political. It's grimy. It's messy. It's promising. It's uplifting. It's strategic. It's so many components of a brand new industry that's going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry. It already is.
Yeah.
So with any industry, and especially when you're getting in at the ground level, there are going to be those people that are going to pull on you, that really stop you from your growth. And there are going to be some people that give you a nice lift up. But if you're not in the game, if you're not in the mix, then you won't be able to experience the pull down or the lift up. And you need a little bit of both. I've had the pull down, but the pull down made me stronger so that when I got the lift up, I'm like, okay, I got it. So now it's my turn to do the lift up. So, my goal is to take, companies that are coming from our communities and how can I help lift you up? How can I use my influence? Because now I got influence. In 2016, I didn't have jack. I had zero, nothing.
Started from the bottom.
Started from the bottom. Now we here. Can you hear me?
Well, I hear that you have something exciting coming up around the 420 time. You want to talk about it?
Yeah. So listen, guys, 420 is the time of the year. So if you ever hear somebody say 420, I'm 420 friendly, that means it's a cannabis friendly. That means they're cannabis friendly. That this is a cannabis weed celebration every year on April 20th. And pardon me. Normally people have big parties or it's a lot of celebratory kind of like, I'm going to kick back and I'm going to enjoy, I'm going to consume, I'm going to kick it with my friends. And so we love that. I mean, if that's what you want to do, you want to do it responsibly, there is something to be said for that. For us this year, we're actually going to use it as a week of service. And so M4MM is going to be going out and doing service projects throughout the whole week.
Wow.
It starts April the 17th through the 25th. We have so many exciting things. We have an expungement clinic, 2 of them that we have on the docks. We have a social equity conversation, kind of like a listening series with New York. We have a big social equity conversation for the whole country. We're doing with the Black Cannabis Initiative. We have an HBCU watch party for The Grass is Greener. So we're going to have HBCU students come on with some guests from the movie and really talk about, our kids are graduating from school. This is the first time they're going to be able to legally understand what it means to be able to be in this industry or partake in this industry. Pardon me. And so we want to be able to have a conversation about the history, about the challenges, about, the prohibition of cannabis, but also about the promise. And how do we normalize the conversation? How do we take years and years and years of brainwashing that if you are someone Black and consuming cannabis, that means that you are, lazy, not wanting to be, not being proactive, being a citizen of the community, and that you don't have anything to offer. How do you change those type of stigmas? And we're going to be having that type of conversation. Yep. It's going to be great. Yep.
That's awesome. Well, I really want to give you a big thank you for all that you've contributed and, the opportunities that you're opening for other people who are trying to get into this industry and people who look like me and you who are trying to get into this industry. Where can people find you if they want to volunteer or if they want to learn more or get some advice?
And we're hiring. I need anybody on social media. I need a good, strong social media person. So come see me. But if you go to www.m4mmunited.org, so that's M as in Mary, the number 4, United, like United Airlines.org. That's where you'll find us. Send us a comment card. You can call us 877-900-0832. We are, if you can see, I'm in my office here. This is Grand Central. Our office is in Orlando, Florida, our corporate office. So we are not a working from home or a home office nonprofit. It's the real deal. And our goal is to make sure that we support you in your efforts. If you need something, come see us. Do not walk in the daze. Do not walk in a haze. You have folks like Hope Wiseman and Marion Main as a resource. But if you need something more, if you need a resource, if you need more information, even if you don't have the resources to be a member, it's okay. Go to the website, put your question in, we'll answer it. You'll see all of the different people. We have a team of just wonderful people that work with the organization. Whatever you need, we're here.
That's amazing. Well, I appreciate you. And I thank you for your time this evening. And hopefully we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Justin. I appreciate you.
You too. Have a great night. Well, that was a really, really inspiring conversation. I want to welcome you to come back and see us next week at 6 o'clock on Wednesday for the next main line. If you have missed any of the old ones, you can go on Facebook or YouTube, type in Marion Main to recap some of the older videos. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week.